Hey guys, Jim from Import Image Racing and welcome back to the channel. On this week's video, we're going to be throwing some new parts from Nameless Performance onto the V8 chassis WRX, and believe it or not, it's not exhaust. Wow, so suspenseful. What a cliffhanger, right? Probably not. Let's get into it. We'll start with the obvious. Import Image is now a proud partner with Nameless Performance, which I'm super excited about. Built in America parts with a quality touch. There's nothing to not like about Nameless Performance. Secondly, when they approached me to put Nameless parts on the car, I politely said, nah, not interested. Sorry. And the reason I said that is because I automatically assumed that Nameless Performance only did exhaust systems. And quite frankly, I'm not only content, but I'm actually in love with my noble full titanium that's on the car and didn't see a reason to change at this time. It was about that moment that they politely reminded me that Nameless actually carries a whole bunch of other parts that aren't just exhaust system. Oh boy, it's getting hot in here. With that being said, I took a broader look into Nameless's catalog and found two specific parts that I was actually really excited to put on this car given the opportunity. Let's meet the two products I'm talking about. First up on our product list today is the Nameless front strut tie bar in this really cool powder-coated red. It's got almost like a 3D effect to it, a texture to it. I really enjoy that. My favorite part about this product right here is the fact that it is a one-piece bar, so we're not messing with any of those three-piece setups. Because if you know anything about rigidity, adding a bunch of slip fits or some sort of pinch bolt to the end here isn't really promoting a good stiff upgrade. Now this particular bar also comes in the same style finish but in a matte black, and what you don't see here and I don't have, Nameless also has a separate tie bar for the rear end of the car, which I will probably end up upgrading or updating later, but for right now I think that front tie bar is going to look good. It's going to install very easy, not to mention something else I really like about the design. It's going to be hard to see here, but inside these holes it's actually concaved, almost like a lug nut over here. So the hardware that comes with it, once you put the bar on and you tighten it up, it's going to center the bar and have a extremely good seat onto your strut towers, and I really like that over just kind of like a sandwich plate that would go between your factory hardware and the strut tower. So we'll kind of get a little bit more into that as we go to the install, but as far as our second piece is going to be our Nameless blow-off valve. This is a really nice looking piece. See if I can get it in the sun here, but it is a CNC'd aluminum blow-off valve, and I really like it. This thing just screams quality, and I am excited to see what it sounds like. Now, I know a lot of you guys might be saying, because it's a full-blown recirc valve, I'm not going to hear a lot of blow-off valve noise, and I'm not really terribly concerned about that. I would be more concerned about the longevity of like a plastic body blow-off valve, especially if I'm going to run more power and more boost in the future. I like the fact that this is a solid aluminum body, and the spring pressure is going to be much higher if I decide to run more boost later on. There's our two parts that we're going to be putting on today. Both are going to be relatively easy to install, especially the strut bar. We'll probably have that thing on in a matter of minutes, and we'll get to take a look how it fits under the hood with our top mount intercooler. I think it's just going to be a nice aesthetic piece, plus it adds a little bit of rigidity. If you do know anything about these strut bars, you know, these chassis are pretty stiff as is, and you're kind of nickel and diamond when it comes to aftermarket strut bars, which is once again why I decided to go with a single piece strut bar and not the three-piece that can flex under body movement. I don't want to say it's just an aesthetic thing, although as you can tell, I do put some stuff on here just for the aesthetic look. You know, it's just the way I like my car. It's the way I wanted to build it. I do build it not only for, you know, my own performance stuff, but I also like taking it to shows and kind of showing it off and giving you guys out there some ideas on what you might want to do to your car. But let's jabber and let's pop the hood and get this thing on. Wow, guys, that was extremely fast. I think I mean, I filmed that thing in real time, and you'll get to see in the video, just to mock the bar up itself probably took all of maybe 45 seconds from, popping the hood to having it on. Now, full disclosure, it's not actually bolted down, but the cool part about this bar that I was telling you before is because you have some conical hardware that goes on in here and centers the bar up, you don't actually have to loosen any of the hardware here to put the bar on, or, like a sandwich plate on and then retighten the hardware. You can just put the bar on, mock it up to all the studs, and then we will have our hardware that we put down into our hull. I touched on it before, but I kind of wanted to show you again. The really cool part about this hardware is the fact that there is a conical seat. So when we go to put this hardware in, you have the female end that will mount to the bar, and then the male end that mounts to the hardware, and that is going to center everything up on both sides. And once it is locked down, we're not going to have any fitment issues or anything worried about the bar moving around or pivoting or anything like that. It's going to be completely centered and completely locked down. Wow, okay, well, strut bar's all done. That was super duper easy. Which actually brings me to another thing. This could be an excellent choice for you guys and girls out there that are looking to just kind of start tinkering with your cars. If you're new to mechanics and being, technically savvy, and you're looking to do something that I think would actually help the performance, or, the rigidity, I should say, of your vehicle, but also something that's going to get you more confident to tackle other things on the car, I would highly recommend this Nameless front strut bar. Not only do I just love the one-piece design, but it was super easy to put on. I mean, no hassle, no nothing. You didn't have to worry about loosening any other bolts, sandwich plates, through bolts, none of that stuff, which I think actually hurts the rigidity of the bar in general. But it also fits with the factory top mount, which is really good if you're just looking to, like I said, kind of dive into mechanics and do some other things that could build your confidence into working on your car and doing harder things later down the road. The next thing on our list is our blow-off valve, which is not going to be as easy as our strut bar. We are going to have to kind of get down underneath the vehicle where the turbo inlet is, since these aren't like the STIs. They have the low mount turbos, and your blow-off valve is going to be way down and probably easier to reach from underneath the vehicle. So we're going to get the car up onto the race ramps, pull all of our shielding and everything out from underneath the car, and then probably have to remove our turbo inlet. But we will see what we get into once we get down underneath the vehicle. Maybe I can kind of finagle the old one out and put this one back in. We'll see, but I still want to do a great job. Here we go. It looks like I have my whole turbo inlet assembly off. I just find that this is the easiest way to remove this valve because the inlet is hard mounted and then our charge pipe is hard mounted. I feel like it's just much easier for me to remove the entire piece, loosen the clamp here, remove the blow-off valve, reinstall our new one, then put this whole thing back on. Believe it or not, then trying to just fight these two hard mounted pieces and slide this valve out. But while I got you here, let's kind of compare the new valve to the old valve. Although the body of the factory valve is fairly big and looks like a nice valve, especially compared to the giant Nameless valve that's right next to it, there is a deceiving part about the factory valve. As you can see with our Nameless valve, you see that silver in there? That's the entire plunger, which is the entire diameter of this large hose that comes off of here. Where on the factory valve, take a look inside there. Although it is accommodating for much larger hose, that tiny little silver speck in the middle is the actual size of the bypass valve. So very little air gets through here, and I believe this is a much better design, especially for recirculating. On top of that, there's also a better chance that I will hear some blow-off valve noise, even though I don't have an intake on the car, which I think is actually going to severely limit the amount of whoosh I'm going to get out of this car. But we are going to try something out with that as well, although the car is pretty much factory except for the Noble titanium exhaust and now my Nameless bar. I do have a GrimmSpeed drop-in filter, so if the factory filter just isn't giving me enough blow-off valve noise, we're going to try throwing that filter in. Not that I expect it to do much for performance, but it might just give me a little bit more airflow to kind of give me the sound I'm looking for by replacing this valve. Either way, at this point, we're just going to loosen this clamp here, pull our old valve out, reinstall the new valve, and then as you can tell, our vacuum ports are facing different directions. So that is just a 5mm Allen. Just crack that loose and point it vertical. At that point in time, we can reassemble the entire turbo inlet back onto the car. Boom! Look at that. We got it. Now, here is another full disclosure moment. I actually messed with this for a considerable amount of time, or at least considerable to me, about 15 or 20 minutes. And the reason that took me so long is I was just hell-bent on reusing the factory clamp. Because this Nameless blow-off valve didn't come with any additional clamps, I decided that I wanted to try my absolute best to reuse all of the hardware so that I wouldn't have to make any special trips or, warn you guys about making any special trips to make any of these parts fit. Unfortunately, I just couldn't do it. The diameter of this outlet is considerably larger than the factory blow-off valve, and once you press it into this little plastic hose here, it was just too much for the factory clamp to squeeze around. Now, luckily, I have a bunch of stuff, including hose clamps. So I went ahead and grabbed a 32mm hose clamp and was easily able to install it once I decided I just wanted to ditch the factory clamp. Now that we've ditched the clamp and got it properly attached to the inlet, we can reinstall it. I've also already turned my vacuum port to the north position, so we should be ready to go. There we have it. It's all done. The kind of crummy thing about these FA20 motors is it's way down there. So there's not a whole lot to see from up top. So it's really just for noise. Here, I'll take you underneath the car before we put the belly pan back on, and maybe you can see something there. Let's have a look. No, with all the inlet hoses and everything hooked back up, it's real difficult to see that blow off. Oh, there it is. Okay, so you can see it just a little bit. But for the most part, this is going to be for sound and for reliability. More or less, it's going to be, like a visual, aesthetically pleasing part. But it's on the car. I'm happy with the install. Bar still looking good. I love that part. So we're going to put it all back together, rev it up a few times, and see if we can hear any real audible difference, with this stock intake here. And if we can't, we'll replace that panel filter in there and try again to get a little bit more noise. But if not, we're just gonna have to wait until we can get an intake and a tune on this car. Hey, we got it all back together and we just beat the sunset. So let's get this car back out onto the road and see if we can tell any audible difference with our brand new Nameless Performance blow-off valve. Well, guys, not sure if you can tell, but it's the next day. After getting the car out and driving it around and going for some sound clips and just trying to feel how that new Nameless strut bar feels, unfortunately the sun just went down and I'm sure nobody wants to see a bunch of blacked out sound clips. Either way, I'll just save you the trouble. After driving the car around, boosting it pretty hard to really try to hear the difference of that new blow-off valve, the unfortunate side is it doesn't sound very different than the stock valve. Of course, most of you guys probably already know that. With an otherwise stock car, stock intake filter, all of that stuff, you're not really going to benefit audibly from an aftermarket, fully recirced blow-off valve. Long story short, if you have $200 or $300 and you're looking to modify your WRX and maybe you're thinking about an aftermarket blow-off valve, especially a full recirc valve, that is not what I would suggest the very first modification for your car would be. Am I upset about that? Absolutely not. I will 100% benefit from a full CNC body blow-off valve down the road. Once I start putting some performance parts on this car, I am definitely going to be excited that I put it on prior instead of working on it later. So that's the end of the video, right? We can just wrap this whole thing up? Not so fast. Since I will be putting an aftermarket intake on this car, this does give me a very unique scenario where I'm going to be modifying this intake box plus filter a little bit to see if I can really pull some sound out of it. And if it doesn't work with some old school tricks, then we'll just put an intake on the car, we'll tune it, and everybody's going to be happy. Introducing the new product to the game, the GrimmSpeed DryCon air filter. Like I said, this is a dry flow air filter. Like I said, the car has about 22,000 miles on it, so it's probably just about time to change the air filter anyway. And since we're looking for a little bit of sound and we're going to be modifying the stock airbox, now is the time to do it. Once again, I'm not making any promises. This is just kind of a fun little tidbit at the end of the video to see if we can get a little bit more sound out of it, but here we go. Here we go. We got the old filter and the box out compared to the new filter. This thing is super dirty. A little bit more, filled with dirt and bugs and all that kind of grimy stuff than I really thought. So I'm glad that I'm replacing it anyway with this new GrimmSpeed Dry filter, just to kind of give you an idea. Let's put it up to the sun. Literally no sunlight. Can't see anything through that. Put it up against our GrimmSpeed. Oh, I can see it. I'm not sure how, oh yeah, there you go. Not sure how it's coming through the camera, but I can see the sun through there. So we're gonna have a lot more flow just by replacing the filter as is. But we're here to do hot rod stuff. So we're gonna be, modifying this box a little bit, cutting some holes in the bottom, getting a little bit more airflow. Once the car's up to speed, because we're still using the factory ram air, once this car is kind of doing 40, 50, 60, 70 mile an hour, you're gonna get a lot of airflow through here. But when the car is just kind of standing still and you hit the gas and that initial suction of the turbo, you're really only using all of the air in this box and a little bit out of this cutout. So we're going to kind of cut some holes in this box, see if we can't just liven this factory piece up a little bit, and then hopefully we kind of get a little bit more noise. Now, I don't expect to gain a whole lot of horsepower out of this. I mean, maybe if the filter's dirty and we're updating to a new filter, I might kind of regain some of the previous horsepower this car had, but I don't expect this to be, breaking any world records or anything. I'm just kind of having a little bit of fun before we upgrade the intake system altogether. Got our box all done. Take a look at that, Not so bad, just kind of fun, I don't expect to set the world on fire. It's just, we're here, we're having fun, and if it doesn't work, it's no harm, no foul. It's just fun stuff. But if you are looking to do something like this, we had a 2 3/4 inch hole saw. I mean, this thing fit absolutely perfect into that little recess that they had there, cut right through. And then, what is this, a 25 mil, so almost a 1 inch hole saw, just to kind of do some more of opening up the bottom of the box. So we're going to go ahead and kind of file some of this out. Also, we have our blade that will get rid of a lot of the little bit of leftover stuff that I'm working on here, clean this whole box up. Then we're going to reinstall it with our new filter and have a little party. Our box is all back together. Take a look. Yeah, you can see the new filter in there. Much cleaner, much better. Our final step is to put our air duct back on. But hey, I feel like we didn't talk enough about this nameless bar because of this whole blow-off valve situation. This thing is awesome. I mean, I love it. I also have the Silver's coilovers, and I will tell you the coilovers set up properly with some chassis stiffening. This car feels really good out on the street, and I plan to continue to upgrade some of these chassis stiffening devices. I really do like the way it looks. I like the way it feels. Nameless, man, coming in clutch on this one. All right, let's get our air ducting back on. We're in the car, we're gonna put it in fourth gear, we're gonna load it up pretty good to get a lot of that air pressure behind this blow-off valve, so let's hear it. Ready? Hey, listen to that, it actually worked. I'm surprised, you know, that's really cool. Now there's a couple of things to discuss. It's not very loud, but it is audible with the windows up, the AC not on, and all that kind of stuff, but I can actually hear the blow-off valve finally. Now, let's talk details. Can I promise you that was because of the air filter? Not sure. Can I promise you because it was the modification to the box? Also not sure. Now that I found that the factory air filter was so clogged up, that was probably limiting a lot of the just air and performance of this vehicle as is. So if I just would have swapped the air filter out, maybe it would have given me a little bit of sound. Or is it because I, have those old school hot rod tricks that I really get the most potential out of the factory air box? At the end of the day, the winner is me. I put a blow-off valve in an almost otherwise factory car, and I do get a little bit of that sound. On top of that, I do have the Nameless strut bar on there, which feels pretty good once I'm throwing this car around in combination with my Silver's Neomax coilovers. This was pretty fun. I had a really good time putting this video together. In fact, I'm kind of motivated now that the car could potentially be a little bit faster than it was. I think we might have to cap this video off with a trip to Mexico. What do you think? Ah, yes. Several moments later, we are in a very far away Mexican parking lot. And so we have the draggy set up, and we're going to hook this thing up and try to do maybe, some 8th mile hits and see just what this factory performance car can do. This is definitely a predecessor to some other videos I'm going to do in the near future about upping the performance of this vehicle. But I thought right now I'm feeling good about the car. I've got it pretty dialed in suspension-wise, and let's see what this car can do. Factory tune, factory intake, all that kind of good stuff. Okay, well the camera's set up, the draggy's ready to go. Let's do a hit. Okay, gang, we're back at the house. That was a lot of driving for just one hit. Seems a little absurd, but hey, one shot, one kill. I feel like that thing came out of the hole about as good as it's going to, so I didn't feel like I needed to really kind of dial that in. Plus, it's all stock numbers. I'm not terribly worried about setting a world record for being the fastest, basically stock car. So I just did a hit. It felt really good. I followed through. That's all we really need to do. With that being said, let's check the numbers because I am pretty impressed. Keep in mind this car is practically all stock performance-wise except for our super duper high performance, highly modified intake system that we just installed and our noble titanium exhaust. But as far as the tune, all stock. As far as the intercooler, all stock. I mean, everything else is OEM as it came from the factory. The only things we have on this car is suspension setup. I have the Silver's Neomax coilovers dialed in pretty good. Knowing that I do a lot of 8th mile stuff, and that's what I really plan to do with the vehicle, I have this car pretty dialed to be doing street hits, no prep, especially I didn't even check the tire pressure. I have no idea what my full conditions were to make this hit. But let's check the paper. We 60-footed a 1.88. Pretty good. Once again, 93 fuel, no tune, not like a race tire or anything, stock clutch, which is just, wow, I don't know how many more of those I'm going to do. But 188 is a pretty good 60-foot for on the street. That's going to hurt a lot of feelings if you're at a stoplight. Getting into the 4-second 0 to 60 on one of these 3,600-pound WRXs with no tune and no performance mods, I'm pretty happy with that too. Finally, for the 8th mile, we have an 8.65 at 80 mile an hour. Now, we 60-footed pretty good. I thought the 0 to 60 was pretty good, but we are definitely leaving a lot on the table once we start getting up into those higher gears. Unfortunately, once again, the car's just not tuned, so I don't expect to really back half in this car, at least in its current form. All in all, I feel a handful of decent mods plus some seat time has really brought this car into a decent performing level for the modifications that we've put on. That brings us full circle to where we started this video. What about the Nameless stuff? The Strut bar, in my opinion, works. It does its job. It's a one-piece bar. Super excited about the fitment. And as far as the blow-off valve, since we did our little intake modification, there is something that you can hear inside the car. Now, as far as outside the car, it's definitely quiet, especially with the exhaust system back there. But inside the car, in between shifts, if I really boost this up, you definitely get that blow-off valve noise. To wrap this whole thing up, I had a great time making this video. Not only did I put some high quality performance built in the USA parts on this bad boy, but we also got to have a little fun out in those Mexican streets. If you're looking for more performance videos just like we kind of ended this with, that would be fantastic. That's the kind of stuff that I love to do. And maybe we can kind of do a little thing where, you know, I have some hot rod knowledge. I'm trying to get the best bang for your buck for some of these aftermarket parts. I guarantee you there's some stuff if you're limited on budget that would work better than other parts, or you know, you can modify some things you already have and really kind of gain the most for your money. No matter what it is, be sure to hit up Import Image Racing for all the best deals on the web and in the world. And guys, we will catch you on the next one.